The Stellar Nexus cantina buzzed with the usual mix of alien chatter, questionable music, and the kind of drinks that could strip paint from a starship hull. In the corner booth, Commander Vex straightened his purple carapace and gestured dramatically with all four of his arms, his voice carrying over the ambient noise like a foghorn in a library. And that's when the beast showed its fangs, Vex declared, his compound eyes gleaming with what he clearly thought was heroic intensity. 4 razor-sharp canines, each one longer than my smallest finger. It growled at me, a sound that would freeze the blood of lesser beings. His crew nodded with the enthusiasm of paid audience members. Lieutenant Clicks, whose species looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a filing cabinet, clicked his mandibles appreciatively. Tell them about the chase scene, Commander. Vex's chest puffed with pride. Ah yes, the pursuit. The creature stalked me through the urban jungle, its predatory instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. It moved with the fluid grace of a born killer, matching my every step. He paused for dramatic effect. I barely escaped with my life when it cornered me near one of their primitive dwellings. Navigator Krex, who resembled a blue jellyfish wearing a uniform, wobbled excitedly. And the pack animals, Commander. Don't forget the pack animals. How could I forget? Vex shuddered theatrically. Golden death machines. Every one of them. They hunted in coordinated groups, using primitive but effective communication. Constant barking, sharing tactical information. One of them actually managed to knock me to the ground with a full-body assault. The cantina had grown quieter, other patrons leaning in to catch the tale of these brave explorers who had somehow survived the death world known as Earth. Vex basked in the attention like a lizard under a heat lamp. The humans, he continued, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. They've somehow managed to coexist with these monsters. Whether through some dark pact or Stockholm Syndrome, we couldn't determine. They actually seemed to enjoy the company of their captors. Clicks nodded sagely. The psychological conditioning must be extensive. We observed humans voluntarily feeding the beasts, even allowing them into their homes. Remarkable adaptation, Krex added. Though it explains why they never developed proper spacefaring technology. Too busy surviving their own planet. Vex raised his drink, a swirling concoction that changed colors every few seconds. To survival, gentlemen. We've seen the belly of the beast and lived to tell the tale. Not many can claim to have faced Earth's apex predators, and returned with all their limbs intact. The toast was interrupted by a soft chuckle from the next table over. The sound came from a woman who'd been quietly nursing what looked suspiciously like actual Earth coffee while reviewing star charts on a tablet. She had the kind of calm confidence that suggested she'd seen things that would make a Rigelian warlord wet himself, but she wore it like a comfortable sweater rather than a battle scar. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. I couldn't help but overhear your fascinating tale of survival. Her accent had that particular Earth quality that somehow made everything sound both friendly and vaguely threatening, like a kindergarten teacher who moonlighted as a bounty hunter. Commander Vex swiveled toward her, his compound eyes adjusting to focus on this interruption to his moment of glory. And you are? Captain Maya Rodriguez, Earth Transport Authority. She raised her mug in a mock toast. Just wanted to congratulate you brave souls on your harrowing adventure. It takes real courage to face down a golden retriever. The temperature at the alien table seemed to drop several degrees. Vex's carapace shifted from purple to a mottled burgundy, which in his species indicated either embarrassment or the early stages of molting. You're from Earth? Born and raised in Houston, Texas. Maya took a sip of her coffee, seemingly oblivious to the way every alien in the cantina was now staring at her. Lovely little planet, once you get used to the constant threat of death. Lieutenant Clicks's mandibles clicked nervously. You must be one of the conditioned ones. The Stockholm Syndrome cases we observed. Oh, absolutely. Maya's smile was the kind that made smart people check their exits. We're all completely brainwashed. That's definitely why we voluntarily share our homes with 4-legged killing machines. She paused, studying their faces. Though I have to ask, which golden retriever tried to hunt you down? Because that sounds like Mr. Peterson's dog Buddy, and he's usually pretty chill, unless you're carrying a tennis ball. Crix wobbled uncertainly. The beast was massive, nearly reached my thoracic joint. So about 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, that's definitely Buddy. Sweet dog, loves belly rubs and has a weird obsession with squirrels. She leaned back in her chair. Did he bring you his favorite stick? He does that with newcomers. The silence stretched like taffy in a black hole. Commander Vex's color had progressed to a sickly puce. The creature was clearly a predator. The teeth, the aggressive posture. Oh sure, all dogs have teeth. Buddy's got 42 of them actually. Maya's tone remained conversational, the way someone might discuss the weather or the local sports team's chances this season. Though calling a play bow an aggressive posture is a bit like calling a hug an assassination attempt. Play bow, Clicks ventured. You know, front end down, rear end up, tail wagging like a metronome on speed. Maya demonstrated with her hands. It's how dogs say hey, want to have some fun, in their native language. The alien crew exchanged glances that screamed we may have made a tiny miscalculation. Navigator Crix was now wobbling with what appeared to be existential dread rather than excitement. And the feline predator? Vex asked weakly. Maya's grin widened. Oh, you met a cat too, this just keeps getting better. Commander Vex's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. A small but deadly predator, black and white markings, razor claws, eyes like chips of green ice. It stalked me from the shadows, then launched a surprise attack. Ah. Maya nodded with the patience of someone explaining basic math to a particularly slow toddler. Let me guess, you were walking past Mrs. Henderson's garden, and something small and fuzzy rubbed against your leg. The color drained from Vex's carapace entirely. How did you know? Because that's what cats do when they like someone. Maya chuckled. Congratulations, Commander. You've just described being adopted by what was probably a very friendly neighborhood cat. The rubbing thing? That's how they mark you with their scent. Basically, the cat decided you belong to it now. Lieutenant Clix's mandibles were clicking so rapidly they sounded like castanets in an earthquake. But the claws extended during the attack. Oh, those weren't extended for attack purposes. Cats have retractable claws, and they extend them when they're happy and relaxed. It's called kneading, or making biscuits. Maya's expression was pure innocence. Did it start purring too? There was a rumbling sound. Crex admitted weakly. Like a tiny engine of destruction. That's purring. It means the cat was blissfully happy. Maya took another sip of coffee. You basically experienced the feline equivalent of a love letter written in body language. The cantina had gone dead silent, except for the soft wheeze of various life support systems, and what sounded like someone in the back booth having an existential crisis. Maya seemed to be enjoying herself immensely. Here's the thing, gentlemen. What you encountered on Earth was roughly equivalent to visiting a daycare center and being terrorized by the finger painting. She leaned forward slightly. You know what you didn't meet? Actual Earth predators. Vex made a sound like air escaping from a punctured spacesuit. Those weren't the apex predators. Oh, sweet summer aliens. No. Maya's tone carried the same fond exasperation a parent might use when explaining why you can't keep a lightning bug in a jar. Let me put this in perspective for you. On the food chain you observed, golden retrievers are somewhere around the level of enthusiastic garbage disposal. Cats are more like adorable serial killers with excellent public relations. Neither of them even makes the top 50 list of things on Earth that could ruin your day. Navigator Crex was now wobbling so violently he looked like he might achieve orbit. Top 50. Earth has mountain lions that can leap 40 feet horizontally and crush skulls with their jaws. We have bears that weigh 3 times what your entire crew does combined and can run faster than your emergency shuttles. There are sharks that have remained virtually unchanged for 400 million years because evolution looked at them and said, yeah, that's perfect. No notes. Maya was warming to her subject now, and her audience was looking progressively more horrified. We have wolves that hunt in coordinated packs using tactics that would impress your military strategists. Crocodiles that can death roll a full-grown buffalo. Spiders the size of dinner plates. Jellyfish that can kill you with a touch. And that's just the stuff we can see without a microscope. The aliens were now staring at her with the kind of fascination usually reserved for watching an approaching supernova. But here's my favorite part. Maya continued cheerfully. All of those things. They're afraid of humans. The silence that followed could have been bottled and sold as a sound dampener. Commander Vex's carapace had now achieved a shade of gray that suggested his species' equivalent of a full-blown panic attack. That's impossible. Humans are clearly the weakest species on your planet. No natural weapons, no armor, limited speed. Maya's laugh was the kind that made seasoned warriors check their insurance policies. Oh, Commander, you're thinking like prey. She stood up and suddenly the cantina felt smaller. Not because Maya was particularly large, but because she carried herself with the easy confidence of someone who had never met a problem she couldn't solve with sufficient application of creativity and stubbornness. Let me tell you about humans, gentlemen. We're what biologists call persistence hunters. You know what that means. She didn't wait for an answer. It means we don't run fast, we don't have big teeth, and we can't climb trees particularly well. What we do is follow our prey until it dies of exhaustion. Maya began pacing slowly around their table, her movements casual but somehow predatory. A human hunter can track a deer for 6 hours straight. Not running, just walking. The deer runs, hides, runs again, hides again. The human just keeps walking. Eventually the deer's heart gives out from stress and overheating. The human hasn't even broken a sweat. Lieutenant Clix's mandibles had stopped clicking entirely, which in his species indicated either deep thought or complete system shutdown. We're the only species on Earth that hunts by making our prey die of terror and exhaustion. And that's just our warm-up act. Maya's smile could have cut diamond. You want to know what makes humans really special? We're the galaxy's finest problem solvers with a pathological inability to leave things alone. She gestured expansively. Other species see a mountain and go around it. Humans blow a hole through it and charge tolls. Other species see fire and run away. Humans said, I bet I can make that work for me, and invented civilization. We looked at the food chain and said this seems like more of a suggestion than a rule. Navigator Krex managed a weak wobble. But surely you evolved to coexist peacefully with your environment. Maya's expression suggested she'd just heard someone claim that water wasn't wet. Coexist peacefully. We turned wolves into chihuahuas for entertainment. We made wild aurochs into dairy cows because we decided we wanted their milk. We took the most aggressive species of wild grass and turned it into wheat, corn and rice because we got tired of hunting and gathering. The implications were beginning to sink in, and the alien crew was looking like they'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. Preferably somewhere with better life insurance. Every single domestic animal you encountered during your Death World expedition exists because at some point in human history, someone looked at a wild, dangerous creature and said, I want that in my house, but smaller and friendlier. Maya was really hitting her stride now. We didn't adapt to our environment, gentlemen. We made our environment adapt to us. She paused to take another sip of coffee, letting that sink in. You know what humans do for fun? We climb mountains that kill people regularly. Just to see the view from the top. We throw ourselves out of perfectly good aircraft with nothing but a sheet of fabric to slow our fall. We invented sports where the entire point is to hit each other as hard as possible without dying. Commander Vex was now making small whimpering sounds that his translator was rendering as static. And here's the really beautiful part. Maya continued, her voice taking on the tone of someone sharing a favorite bedtime story. We do all of this while actively trying to keep everything else on our planet alive. We have entire organizations dedicated to protecting species that could kill us in 12 different ways. We risk our lives to rescue creatures that see us as a light snack. She leaned against their table, her casual posture somehow more intimidating than if she'd been brandishing a weapon. The golden retriever that hunted you. That's what we turned wolves into when we decided we wanted friends instead of competitors. The cat that stalked you. We took African wildcats and made them into lap warmers. Every predator you encountered was the result of thousands of years of human selective breeding to make dangerous things cute and cuddly. The cantina's background noise had completely stopped. Every patron was now listening with the kind of attention usually reserved for incoming missile warnings. So when you say you survived Earth's predators, Maya concluded with devastating gentleness, what you actually did was get adopted by our living teddy bears while completely avoiding anything that might have actually noticed you were there. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable, then evolved into something approaching existential dread. Commander Vex looked like he was reconsidering every life choice that had led him to this moment, including his decision to evolve opposable thumbs. Maya settled back into her chair with the satisfied air of someone who had just finished explaining quantum physics to a goldfish. But you know what the really funny part is? The alien stared at her with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for watching star systems collapse. Humans aren't even the scariest thing on Earth. If the cantina had been quiet before, it now achieved a level of silence that could have been used as a reference point for the vacuum of space. Somewhere in the back, someone's drink glass hit the floor and shattered, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Commander Vex's voice came out as barely a whisper. What could possibly be worse than humans? Maya's grin was the kind that made angels weep and demons file for protective custody. Oh Commander, you sweet naive creature. Humans are just the species that happen to get opposable thumbs first. We're not even the most efficient killers on our planet. She began counting on her fingers like she was listing grocery items. Army ants can strip a cow to bones in minutes. Bullet ants have a sting so painful that some indigenous cultures use it as a test of manhood. There are spiders that can kill you in 15 minutes. Snakes that can drop an elephant with a single bite, and jellyfish so venomous that just brushing against one will have you begging for death. Lieutenant Clix made a sound like a deflating balloon. But humans control these creatures. Control. Maya laughed with the pure joy of someone about to deliver a punchline that had been building for centuries. Oh honey, we don't control them. We just try really hard not to piss them off while we share the same real estate. She leaned forward conspiratorially. You want to know what we're really afraid of on Earth? Mosquitoes. Tiny little flying insects that kill more humans every year than every other animal combined. We've put men on moons, split atoms and built computers that can think, but we still haven't figured out how to make mosquitoes leave us alone. Navigator Krex was wobbling so violently he appeared to be approaching some kind of jellyfish resonance frequency. How do you survive? Mostly by being too stubborn to die and too curious to stop poking things that could kill us. Maya shrugged with the casual indifference of someone discussing the weather. Also, we invented bug spray, which is basically chemical warfare for tiny flying vampires. She paused to let that sink in, then delivered the coup de grace. But here's the thing that really should keep you up at night, gentlemen. Everything I've told you about. The persistence hunting, the domestication, the problem solving, the refusal to accept limitations. That's humans when we're trying to be nice. The temperature in the cantina seemed to drop several degrees. Maya's voice took on the tone of someone sharing a particularly dark secret. You landed on Earth during what we call peacetime. You met suburban humans who were probably heading to work at jobs they tolerate to pay for houses filled with creatures they've bred to be adorable. You encountered the most domesticated, civilized, comfortable version of humanity that has ever existed in our species' entire history. She stood up again, and this time even the bartender took a step back. You never met a human soldier who'd been awake for 72 hours straight and was down to his last magazine. You never encountered a human mother whose children were threatened. You never ran into a human engineer who'd been told something was impossible, or a human teenager who'd been dared to do something stupid, or a human researcher who'd just discovered something that made them go I wonder what happens if I do this. Maya's smile was now less expression and more natural disaster. You think golden retrievers are scary. Wait until you meet what humans become when we're not busy being polite. We have a saying on Earth, speak softly and carry a big stick. You met the soft speaking part. The big stick was having a barbecue in someone's backyard and didn't even notice you were there. Commander Vex was now making sounds that his translator had given up trying to interpret, settling for a series of worried beeps. And the absolute best part. Maya's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried to every corner of the now silent cantina. Every single human you met looked at you, recognized that you were clearly not from around here, and their first instinct was to be friendly. They probably would have invited you over for dinner if you'd stuck around long enough. She finished her coffee in one long swallow and stood up, brushing imaginary dust off her uniform. That's what humans do when we encounter something new and strange. We try to feed it. The silence that followed was the kind that archaeologists might find preserved in amber millions of years from now. A perfect specimen of the moment when three alien explorers realized they had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of reality itself. Commander Vex was the first to move, his forearms fumbling for his credit chip with the desperate urgency of someone trying to defuse a bomb while blindfolded. His carapace had achieved a color that didn't exist in most species' visual spectrum, something between existential terror and please let this be a nightmare. Check please, he managed to croak, his voice carrying all the authority of a deflated balloon. Lieutenant Klix was methodically shutting down his tablet, his mandibles clicking in what appeared to be some kind of prayer or possibly a factory reset sequence. We should update our mission reports, he said weakly. Significant intelligence gaps identified. Navigator Krex had stopped wobbling entirely, which in his species indicated either deep meditation or complete system failure. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the hollow tone of someone who had stared into the abyss and discovered it was making dinner reservations. We never even made it past the suburbs, did we? Maya's expression softened slightly, like a teacher who'd finally gotten through to particularly slow students. Afraid not, Navigator. You basically spent your entire expedition in the galactic equivalent of a petting zoo. She paused, considering. Though to be fair, even our petting zoos have liability waivers. The bartender, a six-armed creature who'd seen everything the galaxy had to offer, approached their table with the cautious movements of someone defusing unexploded ordnance. Will that be separate checks or together? Vex interrupted, his credit chip hitting the table with the finality of a gavel. And add a 20% gratuity for the lady. She's provided us with a valuable education. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's very generous of you, Commander. It's the least we can do for someone who prevented us from making an even greater fool of ourselves. Vex's laugh sounded like air escaping from a punctured habitat dome. We were planning to submit our findings to the Galactic Xenobiology Journal. Surviving Earth, a study in extreme environment adaptation. Oh no, Maya said with genuine sympathy. That would have been awkward at peer review. The three aliens stood in unison, their movements carrying the careful coordination of people who had suddenly realized they were standing on thin ice over very deep water. Commander Vex straightened, what remained of his dignity, and extended one of his hands to Maya. Captain Rodriguez, it has been illuminating. Maya shook the offered appendage with the same easy confidence she'd maintained throughout the entire conversation. Pleasure meeting you, Commander. And hey, if you ever decide to come back to Earth, might I suggest starting with one of our nature documentaries? David Attenborough does lovely work. Really puts things in perspective. Lieutenant Clicks paused in his gathering of equipment. What's a David Attenborough? Think of him as humanity's ambassador to the animal kingdom. He spent his entire life getting up close and personal with creatures that could end him in seconds, and he does it with the enthusiasm of someone collecting stamps. Maya's smile was fond. He's 98 years old, and still climbing trees to film bird nests. We consider him a national treasure. The aliens exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their reassessment of human risk evaluation protocols. As they prepared to leave, Navigator Krex turned back one last time. Captain, hypothetically speaking, if one were to actually encounter Earth's true predators, what would you recommend? Maya considered this with the seriousness it deserved. Hypothetically, don't. She paused. But if you absolutely must, remember that most of Earth's dangerous creatures don't actually want to fight you. They want you to go away and leave them alone. The trick is figuring out how to communicate "I'm leaving" in their particular language before they decide to help you along. She raised her empty coffee mug in a final salute. Also, never run from anything bigger than you are unless you're absolutely certain you can outrun it. And never ever, under any circumstances, get between a mother and her babies. That's universal across every species on Earth, from mice to blue whales. Commander Vex nodded gravely. Valuable intelligence. We'll include it in our revised reports. One last thing, Maya called as they reached the cantina's exit. If you do decide to come back, bring presents. Humans love presents. We're like intergalactic magpies. Show up with something shiny or something that makes interesting noises, and you'll have friends for life. The aliens disappeared through the exit with the speed of people who had suddenly remembered they had urgent business elsewhere in the galaxy. Maya settled back into her chair and signaled the bartender for another coffee. The cantina slowly returned to its normal level of chaos, though she noticed several other patrons were giving her a considerably wider berth than before. Maya didn't mind. Sometimes the best diplomacy was the kind that left everyone with a healthy respect for boundaries. She pulled up her tablet and made a note in her personal log. Encountered 3 Regellian explorers today. Provided basic Earth orientation. No incidents. Recommended they start with documentaries next time. Then she added, note to self, Earth really needs better tourism brochures. Come for the scenery, stay because something ate your ships probably isn't the message we want to send. Maya finished her coffee and gathered her things, already looking forward to getting back to Earth. After all, she had a date with her neighbor's golden retriever, and Buddy was probably wondering where his new alien friends had gone.